I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. I want to say Shalom Lak Mash Paka. Hope is well with you, family. Just wanted to do a brief live here. I'm sure some of you guys probably heard about this situation with Polight. The word have it that or has it that Polight. When I did the research and uh, his sentencing was today. He was sentenced to 7 years of prison as well as 10 years of parole. And I just want to say this: let's not spike the ball. What do I mean by that? Why am I saying that we should not spike the ball as a community? As a community, the sad situation is we have a 13-year-old girl who was molested, who was raped, who was subjected to uh, a heinous crime by a predator, a sexual predator who preyed on young girls. And the reason why I say we should not, as a community, spike the ball, because this behavior is all through our community. This behavior is not just in the conscious community, but this behavior is also within the church, within this awakening, within Islam. It is an issue that needs to be addressed more and more. This should be an opportunity. This should give us the opportunity to really dig deeper into a bigger issue: perversion. See, we have, just in this awakening, if you do the research, you'll see that there's a lot of abused women. There's a lot of abused young people, underage children, that are being molested, that are being abused, you name it. I've had to deal with a number of individuals that were subjected to the things that many are spiking the ball in terms of with the Polight situation. This is why I want to make it clear that yes, I am glad, I'm happy that this predator will be behind bars. But I'm also sad that, this young lady, this girl rather, I'm not even going to associate the term lady with her. This young girl, this child, had to be subjected to that. And there's a lot of things that we can just see, and we can see the behaviors, the patterns that echoes throughout our community. All of us have that one or several family members in our family that it's, within the family to say, hey, don't allow your children to go around certain relatives because of knowing their history, knowing their foul spirit. Many of you guys were subjected to a lot of things because of family trust, whether it's relatives babysitting you, whether it's family, friends babysitting you. This is a bigger issue that needs to be addressed, that should be addressed. I could tell you some sad stories of just the things that our ministry had to deal with, from when we were still part of Christianity, and even making our transition outside of Christianity. Some of the sad cases of men in their 50s, 60s, preying on girls, young women that are 19. You have, even within this community, arranged relationships that was brought to my attention, that you have certain groups here that are doing these, having all kinds of arranged marriage, dowries, and all kinds of stuff for underaged. Come on, family. You have auctions that's literally going on within this community. Go back and look at the channel. Look at the section that says wolves in sheep's clothing. And I had to address a particular individual. But I have some recordings of interviews that I have done of victims that did not want themselves to be put on camera, and I modified their voices. You have people within this community annulling marriages. You have hustlers in this community saying, hey, you know what, we don't need a marriage license. You know, we don't need the government in our business. Circumventing the authority of the father or the father figure in that person's life, just so that way they can have their way with that person and then kick them to the curb. Come on, family. That's why I say, let's not, spike the ball. Many of you guys that may be spiking the ball because of the situation at hand, that, hey, you know what, Polight was found guilty. But there's a deeper issue here. It's not just him. He's pretty much a reflection of a bigger issue that gets swept under the rug. And many of our brothers and sisters are operating in that spirit of perversion that many of us were subjected to, our ancestors were subjected to by way of being enslaved. Because when you study the transatlantic world war, when you study the Arabic sub-Saharan slave trade, you'll see the perversions that our people were subjected to. Women, being used as stress relief, being raped by and sodomized by multiple men, as a means to, as a how can I put it, a stress relief, team building for the soldiers of those Arabs that have enslaved our people. The men being castrated, boys being castrated and molested. So that's one of the things many don't know about when you go over to, I've been over to Iraq. I've been to that area of the world. And when they have what is called, I believe, Ramadan, which is a 40-day fast, and the men are supposed to abstain from being with women, guess what they do? Many of them do. They sleep with men. They sleep with each other. You'd be surprised on some of the things that are going on right now. You'd be surprised that pedophilia is legal in this country. Most of you guys just don't know it. There's many people that's coming in from overseas in other countries with kids, 12-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids as their brides. Come on, family, look it up. Look it up. You have quite a few people coming in from overseas, like India, some of those places, with men, 50, 60, 70 years old, with underage, already married, arranged married. Come on, family, we got to be real about it. So like I said, I learned a lot when I was overseas, especially about that Ramadan. I learned a lot from the locals there as they schooled me on what happens, the perversions that take place, what the men would do as an alternative of not being with women for that 40-day fast. So there's a lot of, I believe, behaviors that stem from the traumatic experience of the slave. Some call it slave trade, but I call it a world war, which it was. A lot of those behaviors, when you study, again, I talk about Emory University, how they proved that traumatic experiences, they scientifically proved that traumatic experiences can alter, can change your DNA. In other words, create strongholds, spiritual strongholds. They subjected mice to traumatic experiences when smelling the scent of like a cherry blossom. They will play loud noises. They'll make loud sounds, and they'll give them shock, shock treatments. So every time they smelt the scent of cherry blossom, they were subjected to those two things. And then what began to happen, they, just from them smelling the scent of cherry blossom, they would panic, rightfully so. But to their surprise, the next generation of mice, the offsprings of this first generation of mice, the scent of cherry blossom, the mice behaved the same way as the previous generation without being subjected to the traumatic experiences. They went further with their experiment by placing mice that were not subjected to that traumatic experience at all. A fresh generation and meshed them among them, subjected them to the same treatment, far as in terms of the scent of cherry blossom. They didn't take on that behavior, the ones that was inserted, but those that was descendants of the first generation, the initial generation of mice that was subjected to those shock treatments and loud noises that caused them to fear, that created phobias and so forth. They retained it. Those that was the descendants of that initial generation, took on that. So therefore, we see in Adam, when Adam sinned, Adam and Eve sinned, their DNA changed. And guess what? We all carry on the traumatic experience of that. So this is scientifically proving generational curses. So think about what we had to go through as a people. Think about what we were subjected to as a people. Think about that. Some of the behaviors of how we discipline our children stems from being hacked. The behaviors that we see among us right now, how we go at one another, is a reflection of being hacked. By way of what? These crimes that was committed towards our people. So, here's sound. They must be doing some stuff outside. So family, I just wanted to just take a few minutes to talk to you guys, to really talk to you guys about the situation. With the Polight situation. This is not time for us to spike the ball as a community. Because we know that this issue, that with what Polight had done, it's a bigger issue. This happens more than what you can ever imagine. Mothers, trusting, their boyfriends or whomever, not knowing that this person could be a potential predator, being subjected without their knowledge to perversions. Likewise, fathers trusting their children to women and not knowing that their children are being subjected to perversions. So that's my thought, family. And I want to say it again. Now is not the time for us to spike the ball, because the things are deeper than what we can ever imagine. It's not just this Polight thing. Polight, that whole situation really is a reminder that how big this issue is among our community. It's big in other communities as well. But again, it's really big inside our community, these perversions. With that being said, family, have a blessed remainder of the day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Till my next live. Shalom.